Thanks to Conflict of Nations for sponsoring this video. Israel has some of the oddest tank units in the world, and not just because of the Merkava. There are better people to talk about that platform's idiosyncrasies, like just what that compartment in the back is really for. But today, I'm covering the organization of Israeli armor units, as well as their tactical markings and how to ID a tank's unit from the platoon to brigade level. But first, if you're interested in modern conflicts, you might also be interested in Conflict of Nations, a free online PvP strategy game where you can bring the fight to the shores of up to 128 other players in real time. In Conflict of Nations, you're completely free to choose your strategy, whether you want to be the Hermit Kingdom or Alliance leader, and you can play on PC and mobile on the same account. I really like its deep and persistent nature. Games can take weeks to complete, so it's far from superficial. Click on the link in the description to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. The offer is only available for 30 days, so click the link, pick your country, and carve your path to victory. At the base of the active duty Israeli tank company is the Merkava Mark IV-M. As its 120mm cannon is manually loaded, the tank is crewed by 4 soldiers: the commander, gunner, driver, and loader. A platoon has 2 tanks. One will be commanded by the platoon leader, who is either a lieutenant or second lieutenant depending on time in service, while the B tank is commanded by a staff sergeant or sergeant, field NCOs and not professionals. Note that the enlisted tankers are conscripts, with the tank commanders being towards the end of their obligation. I've been told that they generally try to pair the least experienced platoon leaders with the most experienced field NCOs and vice versa, which I suppose is a way to try and maximize what little exists in terms of experience, since there aren't any professional NCOs with more than 32 months in service. By contrast, American staff sergeants, sergeants first class, and probably sergeants as well will have more time in service. The next level up, each company has 4 platoons, 2 tanks each. These are numbered 1 to 4, each with a commander tank and a B tank. And then the company HQ has 2 tanks as well, which I'll get into in a little. This wasn't always the case though. Originally, the IDF had 3 platoons of 3 tanks plus 2 HQ tanks. The reserve brigades in fact still have 3 tanks per platoon, with a 3rd A tank for the newest commander. This structure was influenced by conventional war pressures, and I've seen it claimed that going from 5 to 3 tanks per platoon was a result of experimentation after the 1956 Suez Crisis. We most often associate the 3-tank platoon with the Russians, but other nations have used it to either tighten command and control during fast-paced maneuvers, or allow for more platoons in a company, more companies in a battalion, or more battalions overall, which in a large-scale conflict can be a worthwhile trade-off. The British and Germans have done it historically, the Swedes still do it, and the US at least tested the idea before they settled on going from 5 to 4 with the adoption of the Abrams. But now, Israel has 2. Based on this 2006 article from Defense Update, at that time, the Israelis were pondering reducing the tank company from 11 tanks to 7 with the adoption of the Merkava Mark IV-M. The idea was to have sections of 2 tanks operating autonomously, enabled by the technology and capability of the new Mark IV-Ms. It seems that the current state is an evolution of that pondering, both 4 platoons instead of 3, and 2 HQ tanks instead of 1. Veterans I talked to referenced either the smallness of Israel's military, or the limited number of Merkava IV-Ms in service due to its disproportionate expense, and smaller platoons as a way to stretch them. Now, I mainly talk to conscripts and NCOs, so this could all be low-level perceptions rather than high-level doctrinal rationale, but it makes sense to me. In armor-centric combat, you could maybe argue that a 4th platoon could give the company commanders the ability to form a reserve. That was the justification for some Cold War militaries going to 3-tank platoons. But in my talks with an Israeli veteran, he said when the tank company is operating as a whole for a more armor-centric attack, the company can either maneuver as a whole, or be split up into 2 groups of platoons, one under the CO and the other under the XO. Pretty similar to a 5-tank platoon, which is more in vogue during the Cold War and World War II. So it seems to be one of those hyper-specific adaptations Israel can make because it's Israel. and probably not something that could be generalized to a force expected to operate in a wider range of environments like the US Army. But back to the company, there's a company HQ tying the whole thing together. It has 2 tanks as described previously, one for the commander and one for the executive officer. In terms of how these are manned, I've heard different things from different veterans. One told me that the company training NCO, equivalent to a US Army Master Gunner, rides in the CO's tank in the loader's hatch. The training NCO is actually the assigned commander of the tank, so in combat, that Merkava has 5 crew members. They're basically the conscript tank commander who's most proficient in gunnery and goes through an additional Master Gunner's course. However, another veteran told me that both the CO and XO tanks have a dedicated tank commander who sits in the commander's position, while the CO and XO lead from the loader's hatch. That implies the CO is really focused on leading the company while the TC fights the tank. If they have to button up, the CO or XO can crawl back into the rear compartment, which for a limited amount of time doesn't require the ammo pods to be removed. However, if the company's medic rides with the HQ tanks, an ammo pod would most likely be taken out. In addition to the tanks, the company has an M113 APC that carries 6 repair technicians specialized in different parts of the tank, like mechanical, electrical, radio, etc. The company medic can also ride in there during wartime, but this might vary unit to unit. As well, the company has a Jeep Wrangler and a Isuzu D-Max for light transportation and logistics in a garrison or safe area setting. The Jeep Wrangler is driven by the CO's driver, although in practice, the company HQ's tank crews will know how to drive it, while the D-Max is for the company's sergeant, who's essentially a logistics NCO. Although during wartime, they joined the battalion trains to coordinate forward sustainment for the company. And yes, the newest Wranglers and D-Maxes in IDF service are basically dealership vehicles in black and white. You can find pictures of the D-Max and Jeep variants called the Storm in drab paint, but I've been told that this is considered a waste for vehicles that aren't intended to be in combat anyway. At the battalion level, the Israeli Armor Battalion has a support company, which is essentially a headquarters and service company, 2 active tank companies, 1 maneuver support company, referred to me as an infantry company but it's a little different, and 1 reserve tank company. Note that according to one veteran I talked to, those reserve tank companies may be centralized at the brigade level and only doled out to the battalions during wartime. According to another, he hadn't seen the reserves training on their own tanks, but rather tanks loaned from active companies. Meanwhile, the infantry company is really more like the British concept of maneuver support, originally a Humvee recon and mechanized mortar formation. However, I've been told that the intent is to turn them into a sort of smart infantry unit, with Nommer APCs, drones, and a fire support NCO, although details on that are pretty shaky. The next level up is the brigade, which generally consists of 3 armor battalions, 1 armored engineer battalion, and signal company. They used to have a dedicated reconnaissance company as well, but these were integrated into the armor battalion and maneuver support companies. Dedicated infantry are contained within infantry brigades at the division level. As far as active armored brigades, there's the 7th and 188th Brigades under the 36th Division, which also has the 1st Golani Infantry Brigade and 282nd Artillery Regiment, as well as the 401st Armor Brigade under the 162nd Division, which also has the 84th and 933rd Infantry Brigades and 215th Artillery Regiment. There's also the 460th Brigade, but this is a training unit hosting Israel's Armor School. I'm told that in wartime, their cadre could be used to provide tank and APC commanders across the force. In addition to these active forces, there are 7 reserve armor brigades, mostly with Merkava Mark IIIs. Now, as for the tactical markings, the Israelis really leave it all out there so you can figure out exactly what unit a tank is in. At the lowest level, platoons and individual tanks are normally identified via a number and letter on the side of their turret and their front right and rear left mud flaps. Platoons are numbered 1, 2, and 3, with the commander marked by their platoon number and their wingman marked by their platoon plus the letter B. The company commander's tank is marked by a Gimel, equivalent to Charlie. The XO tank, meanwhile, is marked with a D, and the APC is marked with a 9. The battalion commander tank likewise is marked with a 10C, and the battalion XO with 11C. The tank's company is distinguished by the orientation of the arrows on the side paneling. Downwards facing means first company, forwards is second, upwards is third, and rearwards is fourth. This is repeated on the mudguards next to the platoon and tank designations as a series of horizontal lines. However, different brigades number their companies differently. For example, in the 7th Brigade, tank companies are the 1st and 3rd, 2nd is the Maneuver Support Company, and 4th is the Headquarters and Service Company. The tank's battalion is distinguished by the number of rings on the cannon barrel, 1, 2, or 3. This is repeated as a numeral on the opposite mudguard. And finally, the tank's brigade is distinguished by the symbol surrounding the battalion number on the mudguards. A square represents the 401st, a shield the 7th, and a star the 188th Brigade. So for example, this tank is the B tank of 1st Platoon, 3rd Company, 2nd Battalion, 401st Armored Brigade. Meanwhile, this Merkava is also the B tank, but of 2nd Platoon, 3rd Company, 3rd Battalion, 188th Brigade. And the head of this column appears to be the commander of 1st Platoon, 1st Company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Armored Brigade. Thanks again to Conflict of Nations for supporting Battle Order. For the next 30 days, you can get a big leg up at the link in the description with 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free, so don't miss out.